Hello. I've got no idea what I'm doing here. This is well, it's not a new thing. Kind of bringing back Deep Red Galactic just ever so slightly. Because I am facing a very, very, very minor conundrum where I don't know if we're going to be able to stream today. I mean, I'd like to, but if I can't, I might still have time to get a really short video out. And the question was, what would that video be? Well, I could take a look at some of the adventures I've been having recently in the Deep Rock subreddit, actually also being not downvoted to shit as well, which is pretty interesting. I thought I'd show some of this off. it's pretty funny. Probably gonna title this like the Baron's Reddit Adventures or something. Either way, let's just have a look at some of this stuff. So there was this post made by our good friend here, Bloody Strawberry, asking, can we get a season dedicated to just taking a second look at things that was already put in? So already sort of I'm on his side. Sort of I really get the I mean, I fully share the desire for a season that takes a second look at things. If you look at his points though, it's some stuff that I might not necessarily agree with. Like he thinks the Sandals and Corridors needs like a revamp because it's boring, like in an outdated sense, which I don't think is true at all. I personally think the only thing it could do with is some kind of mini like Oasis feature. That would be pretty neat. And he sort of has other weird things like alternative flair stuff. It's not. None of these are necessarily ideas I would agree with, but that's not really the point. I've got nothing against people asking for new things or asking for more out of the game. I think that's a very healthy thing to do as long as you're not being hostile towards the devs. He also acknowledges certain things like the devs not wanting the game to be melee focused, for example, when he suggests more pickaxe upgrades. Which I think more pickaxe upgrades is a very good idea. We don't need more melee weapons necessarily, but more pickaxe upgrades, absolutely. But still, whether or not I agree with him is not necessarily the point. It's actually what someone else said, and I sort of get a little bit paranoid over like sort of the names. I don't know if I want to read names out, but yeah, my sort of take on it, or as far as I know, what makes it okay to show this is that it's a public forum. Either way, so this person, it sort of gives us a slightly snarky comment, something I didn't really appreciate. It's like, it's amazing how an outstanding developer can give us so much awesome, only for it to not be good enough for people soon after. I think you should reread your own title, look at things when you put in, appreciate what's being given to you. Now, don't flame this person. He actually goes on to be revealed to be a more level-headed person. But I needed to step in, because I really didn't appreciate the attitude here. The attitude of trying to shout someone down for suggesting improvements or more to add to the game, and also the idea that we should just blindly be satisfied. It should just be good enough no matter what, just because the devs put a lot of work into it. As long as you can appreciate what is there, I think it's actually more important that we give feedback on what could be there or what could be improved about what's already there. I think that is way more important. I think that anything that sort of encroaches on shutting down criticism or feedback is something that I can't really stand for in this community. It's the kind of thing that I want to stop, because I think feedback and criticism is extremely important, and it's one of the things that Reddit sort of discourages, which I think is a really big problem. And I would recommend Ghost Ship don't necessarily look to the people who aren't suggesting things. You know, I don't know what that means. I just mean the kind of people who don't really get on board with suggestions and whatnot. They are not really helping you go ship. And I think in a way they know that. Either way, I sort of come out with this response talking about how it's one of my favourite games, and I adore what's already there. But that means, because I've been playing it for so long, it means I've had time to sort of interpret and like sort of, I guess, like I use the word perceive what more could be done. And how I'm not just going to mindlessly swoon over all the great shit I already know is there. Which is, I mentioned that's implied by someone voicing improvements, is that they already know that it's great. They wouldn't care to suggest improvements if they didn't already enjoy what's there. They want to see a game they love do even better. And I do sort of go on the attack a little bit, I admit. I tell him that this person, that their mindset is incredibly boring and unhelpful for the devs. It is unhelpful for the devs. I feel like shouting down criticism and feedback is never going to be as helpful as the feedback or criticism itself. You're not helping the devs, therefore you're not helping the game that you seem to care about, you know. I would say seem to, because I don't believe the people who spend all their time just shutting down ideas do truly care. I don't think they do. I also mentioned I have nothing satisfied. I have nothing against people being satisfied with the game, but making people feel bad for suggesting improvements sucks. And if that's all you've got to say, then you should keep it to yourself. If you think there's something wrong with wanting a great thing to be better, that is objectively. That's what I'm saying. That's what he's implying. In this guy's original comment, he is implying there's something wrong with wanting something to be better, which is not fair. So yeah, and then clearly you don't care all that much. I don't necessarily agree with some of the more personal comments I made, but on principle, I think I'm definitely right, and clearly people agreed with me, which was kind of nice to see. I mean, I don't have any sort of respect at all for the sort of the Reddit hive mind, and I don't know if it's just because I tick certain boxes I got upvotes. I'm not sure, but either way, I seem to be on the right side of history for once. Anyway, in response to my response, he begins to elaborate and clarify, which is very fair. And he's talking about how every so often there's a post like this that describes elements that should be added to the game. And he explains how these suggestions that people make are often half-baked and already considered or rejected ideas by the devs, or totally unbalanced and useless of what already exists. He's right, by the way. This is the thing. This is why I actually kind of like this guy, right? Because I do think his original comment was in poor taste. I do. And I wish he didn't, I'm sure he regrets typing it. I mean, I wish he didn't type something like that. I probably made the original poster feel bad, but getting this clarification about this guy was actually very useful. It shows that people aren't just like, the first thing you see about them isn't necessarily the case. I mean, first impressions matter. You only make first impressions once, but either way, I sort of turned around. I think this guy's a bit more level-headed than he seemed at first. So if you've been around for so long, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I do. I'm not against suggestions or ideas, but again, 9 times out of 10, they fall under at least 2 of the categories listed above. Can't understand how people don't utilise the search option within the sub or sort post by the idea tag before making a post that's already been considered before. I'm not sure if I addressed this or not in my next comment, but now there's this concept of karma baiting, right? And I don't really understand it fully. As far as I know, a way to do karma baiting is to drop into a subreddit specifically for a game and just ask questions immediately, because it gets you comments and it gets you upvotes as well. Which is something I heartily disapprove of. But in general, people asking for things, asking questions about stuff they don't know about, or suggesting ideas that might have already been shut down, I don't think they have a responsibility to know what's been said about hypotheticals. I really don't. I think this stuff for most. I feel like for most people who care about the game, they should be somewhat aware by now of things like water biome and medic class and the fact that they're not happening, right? Something like that. Okay, I think that's probably more reasonable, but a lot of this stuff, it's like, I don't think everyone who suggests ideas should be hyper aware of everything that the devs have been saying about our suggestions. I don't think that's a fair expectation. I think what is fair is that we drop in and make sure that they know, and we do so politely, tell them that their ideas are not going to make it into the game. I think it's fair to tell them if there has been an absolute no placed on one of their ideas by Ghost Ship. I think we should tell them that. I think it's fair that they know that, but they should not be expected to be fully in tune, as in tune as you are. I would never expect anyone to be as in tune as I am with this game's development, right? Because I know pretty much as much as I can know, except for actual behind the scenes content, like DRG Historian or something. I'm just very aware of everything that's being said by Ghost Ship about the game. So he goes on to sort of dismantle some of the guy's suggestions about sandbox corridors and the flares and the beer and crafting materials. And then one where he actually kind of agrees with the original poster. But once again, I do agree with him about the ideas being somewhat half-baked. And I'll tell him if it was original comment, I would have actually agreed with him, because I do think original poster's ideas are somewhat scatterbrained. It's just that I disagree in principle with being blindly satisfied. The original comment felt like you were trying to tell OP they were wrong for once in a while of the game, and I didn't appreciate that. Nothing against you personally, though, hope no bad blood. So this is me being the vanguard of discipline that I attempt to be. I don't know if that came through in yesterday's video. I feel like I came across like I was high or something in yesterday's video. I don't know what was going on there. Either way, I really am trying to just harbour good relationships, because, I'm getting upvotes here. The other guy's clearly getting a few downvotes at least, I reckon, which is not getting many upvotes. But I don't want to kick him into the dirt. I want to hear what he has to say, and this is why I don't like downvotes in general. They end up actually hiding things. For example, this guy's original post, even though it's technically got positive, if I were to take away my upvote, it'd go down to 0. So we know it's got downvotes, and I think it's got enough actually where it's been hidden, which is slightly unfortunate. And I really disapprove of that system. But then, you know, our guy comes back with a pretty reasonable comment about how he might just take a break. How he sees really weird repetitive posts all the time when people can just search keywords for the idea and read what others have provided. See, I didn't actually know this is a thing, and if it is, then maybe he's onto something, to be fair. At the same time, I think I don't think people should just not make suggestions just because they might not be valid. I think we're allowed to tell them that their suggestions aren't going to happen. Ultimately, it's kind of like the band subs I follow. Yeah, he sort of talks. Would take a break for us, inevitably see another underwater biome post or something. So this is why I really do agree with him. It's pretty annoying, especially if people asking for medic class and whatnot, so I definitely get the original comment. It's just that I would keep something like that to myself. Specifically, what he said in the original comment is something I would have kept to myself, where he was sort of being a bit too harsh, too OP in my opinion. But it's a good idea to explain to someone that a suggestion of theirs will never make it into their game. I think it's very reasonable to inform them. You should either do that or just scroll on by. And I think that's fair too. I think we should never, ever add hostility where there is none. We should only ever respond with hostility to hostility, in my opinion. Not that this guy's original comment was particularly hostile. I just didn't appreciate sort of the sentiments he was propping up there. And I wanted to make sure I got in there and sort of explained why he should have said something exactly like, oh, but the reason why it wasn't like morally objectionable. I want to get that out of the way. I mean, this isn't life or death, but I am talking about Deep Rock, so I'm going to take it seriously as I can. You know, I'm not talking about anything else. If I was talking about a more serious matter, I would treat it probably more seriously, but I'm talking about Deep Rock right now, just why I'm going to take it seriously as I am with anything else. And there's nothing like insanely wrong with what he said originally. I just don't think it's the right thing to say to anyone. And I don't think it's helpful for the game or the devs. I don't think it's healthy. So I sort of needed to just swoop in there, sort of grab that. I mean, a couple other things I might want to show you. I'm not sure, so let's have a look. Alright, so this is from the full analysis of engineers secondary weapons video, which we've been enjoying these greatly. These are a lot of fucking fun. I'm excited to get into the rest of them. We're only going to be doing one class per month, but that is 2 videos each. I actually had a chance to go up to bat for roll control, which I think is a severely underrated overclock for the breach cutter. And obviously our guy comes back. Seems to be appearing a lot. You got to get these people on the Reddit. I don't know if it applies to every subreddit, but I've noticed this for Deep Rock. You sort of get people who sort of crop up very often in almost every post, sort of commenting their ideas. They're usually sort of tapping back, and we get this a lot. And that's because we tend to have at least a couple unpopular opinions in our videos, and this video was no exception, even though we tried to be as objective as we could. He questions how does one rate roll control higher than HVC, high voltage crossover for what? What's SD? Sorry, I don't know what SD is. Single damage? Whatever. HVC is pretty comparable with Inferno. You get to take armor rate too, since it comes with a quasi stun. Yeah, and I had an opportunity here to just lay it out and really deliver on why I am very, very certain that roll control is not bad and that HVC is actually not useful at all. So I'll just read it. HVC is invalidated by Inferno because Inferno will kill everything it touches that is weaker than the Praetorian. That's not strictly true, by the way. I don't think it will kill. It would essentially kill Goo Bombers and Wardens, but I don't think it can actually kill them in one shot. So there's a little bit of a hyperbole there. HVC will not kill guards or grabbers or brundles or Goo Bombers. Inferno also boosts DPS against everything, which it does, even though obviously we can't set bosses on fire. It does still increase your DPS against them. This is a fact. While HVC does nothing extra to oppressors and bosses, and I also comment that the slowdown would be useful if it applied to those enemies, but it doesn't. Therefore, HVC isn't worth taking. Just in general, it's not worth taking because every role that's needed for it is performed better by Inferno, because Inferno will kill everything that HVC will otherwise just slow down. Roll control is arguably weaker in outward strength than HVC, obviously, but it fills multiple niches that other OCs can't, such as being more effective against enemies on walls, lining up multiple materia even without triple split line, and creating plasma tubes to deal with tiny enemies. So that's why I think role control has a place. Because it does fill multiple niches objectively, by the way. There's no argument there. It has niches that it fills that other OCs don't fill. Yet HBC its existence is mostly invalidated by Inferno. He sort of responds that it just depends on play style, which is true. Fire on oppressors is negligible because they aren't going to stay lit long enough for it to matter. Well, he's just a big dumbass there. Sorry. I'll get back to that though. Yeah, you can fire and forget on guards, but again, your arm break is reduced, so I prefer HVCs and like leaning my shotgun for cleanup. So he's right about the playstyle thing, and I'm not too interested in cleanup. But I'm going to take issue with the oppressors thing. I'm actually going to type something. Fire. Which HBC can't. So that's been my point there. Yeah, the fire isn't going to do enough damage to an oppressor to mean anything on its own, but it does mean you can get the damage bonus from Executioner, which I think having a strength of an overclock be very singular and not situational, but very much so based on specific builds is not invalid. It's not an invalid way of looking at things, and in that sense, because it has it one ups HVC in one very specific way, but it does still one up it. That's sort of my view on that matter. And that's a bit lighter. I mean, it's with the same guy. This discourse, but a little bit more pleasant, and it gave me an opportunity to go up to bat for both Inferno and role control, and I think I did a good job. I hope I did. Let me know. This is an interesting one actually, because this sort of ties in directly to the first post that we talked about, because it's someone talking about a wish list, and me actually going in and explaining certain things, like sort of clarifying for them, because I think that's the right thing to do. He says that he's nearing the end of Season 3 Battle Pass, at level 72 right now, so he's been thinking a lot about Season 4. Personally, he'd like to see new perks introduced and a faster way to grind Black Matrix cores still. I think the promo change is good, but I will never have enough cores, and I can't save edit on PS5. What's everyone else's wish list looking like? So I do think it's pretty weird when people bring up save editing and whatnot. It's just like, are you that oppressed by the grind? And I think you can be, but I almost don't get the lack of complacency with the core hunt grind. I mean, I did it. I've done it before. It's not like I'm a complete stranger to it. And you sort of just get on with it. Overclocks aren't 100% essential for you actually being able to play the game in Hazard 5. They're almost essential. Some of them are. But in my opinion, like sort of the drip feeding and sort of not knowing what's going to get next and sort of having to wait for these sort of cool upgrades to sort of come along was always exciting. And I sort of don't quite get why people want to like save edit and things like that. I didn't quite get that, but that's not what I sort of came at him about. I wanted to address mainly the perks thing, because he'd like to see new perks introduced, and there's a lot of reasons why that's not as simple as that. Because first of all, the devs aren't quite satisfied with the way the system is as of current, and even then, even though there is a massive excess, there's not such a great excess that would allow for a lot of new perks to be added, and still leave a good enough excess so that people can easily get all the perk points they need. It's a bit of a complicated issue, and I do explain this. Unfortunately, the chances of more ways to get cores, though, is essentially zero, as the demand was only inspired by the bug, so now it's nowhere near a priority for them. I think that's true. I could be proven wrong, but I'm just telling him that, and also because I kind of I think Ghost Ship have done enough recently. They have some very strong principles about the core hunt grind that they're sticking to, but they're not against giving us more. They just don't like giving us more control. They really don't like removing the RNG element from it at all. So that's going to stick around. But I really do think we've reached the cap on that. Even if we do get new overclocks, which I think could happen in season 4, I still think then they've done their part in alleviating that grind. I don't think it's going to go any further than that. I really don't. But to be fair, that is not as objective as the perks thing, where I explained how that will definitively not happen in season 4. They've stated they want to touch perks soon, but next season is too soon for what they want to do to it. So you can comfortably look forward to perk changes and additions, but not in season 4. As in, it's going to happen at some point. I reckon season 5. I don't see why not season 5, frankly. But it's going to happen at some point, and they're going to put a lot of effort into it, which is really exciting, as you'll know. But this is sort of me just explaining as politely as I can why this guy's... not shutting down this guy's ideas, but sort of explaining why it would be best for him to put them to rest, I think. That's a better way of putting it, right? He should put these ideas to bed because there are reasons why they're not going to happen. I think it's very fair to explain that to him. I did. Okay, so this is the last post I want to talk about with you guys today because just this. Someone asking me about the promotion update on console. Now, which I find a bit of an odd question at this point because we know it's been around for I don't know how long actually. I think it's been at least a week. Right, I know that. It's been at least a week, but it might be 2 weeks, it might not have been. I actually don't quite know. And I guess it's not really a reasonable answer to just, give it a go. It is for someone like me, but maybe not for this guy, if we're being fair. He's been keeping an eye on it since he moved platforms, and it would help catch me up to where I was. Oh, I see. I didn't actually catch that when I first read this. He switched platforms, as in had to start fresh, and it would help. Okay, but there's been radio silence about it for nearly 2 weeks. Yeah, and I do explain it's been out for at least a week, and I explain that Ghost Ship are pretty bad at communicating patches, and they're actually terrible. Given that there's no in-game patch notes beyond main season launch notes, they confine announcements about the game to places that they shouldn't, as in they shouldn't be confined there. Every announcement related to the game, everything, every Steam post, there should be a forum that presents this stuff in-game. On the title menu, I think, when you sort of load in, it's like, it shows you like the season and the patch notes. But the patch notes there are only ever the main season patch notes. And even then, they're not actually accurate because they're based on the experimental launch patch notes. They're the initial season patch notes. They don't represent the changes that have been made over the course of the experimental branch even. And then even the multiple patches that will come out after the actual launch of the season. So I genuinely think Ghost Ship are really, really bad at communicating patches that aren't main updates. People want to know, and I think we sort of encountered this guy a lot, and I don't mind saying his name, Sir Pounce the French. He's always there to sort of take down your ideas or sort of come to bat for Ghost Ship when it doesn't really make sense. And to be fair, this is a bit of a subtle defense, but he is still proposing a defense against what I'm saying, which there isn't one, by the way. He says, to be fair, most people don't even read the major patches. They probably don't. But at the same time, it at least tells them there's been a patch. If we get actual patch notes every time there's a patch in game, then at least people will know that something's changed. They might be more tempted to read it. They should at least know that something's changed. There's no argument against that. There is no argument against that. The fact that they don't have patch notes in game properly for every small patch that comes out is a flaw in their live service and in their game design in general. And that is inarguable. It's 100% inarguable. It's objectively the case. It's really bad that they don't do that. And it's something I've only picked up on recently, but it's bad. And they need to sort that out. And I talked about sort of the Steam post thing. It's not as essential. Patch notes are way more essential. There should definitely be a forum where patch notes are posted in-game. But honestly, even stuff like this, people don't catch this stuff if they don't use Steam. As in, if they don't check the Steam News Hub, I should say. I don't play the game on Steam. I just check the News Hub because it's where we get the news. But most people don't know about this stuff. You know, patches, for example, this objectively should be in the game. The fact that it's not is wrong, right? But other things like that should be in game as well. I think it will aid the live service, make the game feel more alive if we're consistently getting these news posts in game. It's such a simple trick to make the game more alive. Because it's just putting in the game stuff that you've already put out into the world. They just need to put it in game at the same time. And that's why it really pisses me off when people like come to bat for Ghost Ship in a way that isn't helping Ghost Ship. You know, what I said lends itself to a suggestion, lends itself to the idea of having an in-game news forum, which is an objectively good idea. And the fact that someone feels the need to shout down my criticism is really worrying. It's like, you don't care about the game, really, do you? You're just karma baiting, right? You're just like, or you're just sucking Ghost Ship's dick because you don't know what else to do. You can't handle someone saying anything negative, even though I've only ever said bad things about the game because I care and want it to do better. And that's why I don't trust these people. I don't like find their love for the game to be genuine. And I'm very comfortable in saying that mine is more genuine. Anyway, that got a little bit more serious than I wanted it to. Either way, I think that's actually going to be it for today's video. I don't know if we're going to stream today. There's a very small chance we could stream later this afternoon. But I just wanted to get something out, something short, in case we don't stream. And let me know if you like this. I might, because on Mondays I don't really have time to stream anyway, I might start doing something like this. And I know Tyler's not particularly interested in Deep Red Galactic at all, which is actually really fair. He's kind of gotten sick of the community, which I sympathise with. Or do I sympathise? I think sympathise means I feel the same way, because I don't feel the same way. I actually find it kind of funny and entertaining, and I think it's very important to address certain things, like, it's stuff like this that he's kind of sick of, and I get that, but I still think it's important to digest it. I'm not going to just shut it out. Anyway, that's all from the Baron today. If you enjoyed this, please make sure to like, subscribe, comment what you thought of the video, if you think it's an interesting new series, whatever you want. Either way, that's all for today. Take care, guys.